Welcome back to RevRoad University. You know it's my favorite day of the month. And I'm pumped because my good friends are here from Thread Wallets. The Bauers founded Thread Wallets in 2015, and through this venture, they have found an irreplaceable sense of freedom and happiness as their vision has unfolded. Together, they raised some $60,000 from Kickstarter and launched Thread Wallets with a line of slim, stylish wallets that can be attached to a keychain, lanyard, or phone. Since then, they've expanded into other accessories like lip balm holders and crossbody bags. They sell their products in 600 stores like Zoomies and Shills and create corporate swag for Coca-Cola and Qualtrics. Revenue for 2021 is projected to be $18 million. Both Mckenzie and Colby believe in the power of surrounding yourself with smart and talented people who are dedicated to creating and building. So give a warm welcome to Kenzie and Colby. I almost said McColby. Mckenzie and Colby.
You can just call us McColby.
McColby.
I like that.
I think it'll stick.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks for being here. We had this conversation briefly earlier, but you did just go to Mexico.
We did. We
And
went back to back. I think Kenzie was all cooped up in 2020, and we went from like California, Hawaii,
And
Mexico,
Alaska was in
and
there.
Alaska was somewhere in there too.
Oh, wow.
And we didn't get enough beach. That's why I'm wearing my Aloha shirt.
Well, I also did not get enough beach through your stories and posts, so I also came ready for the beach.
I love it.
You guys are super creative, and I think Thread Wallets is a perfect product for the beach as well. But talk to me about Thread Wallets. What is it? Where did the idea come from? How did it start?
Yeah, do you want to take this one?
Sure. Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to play soccer at BYU and BYU Hawaii. Thanks. The BYU Hawaii coach came to tryouts, and he, at the end of the tryouts, offered me to come play at BYU Hawaii, and I was like, yeah. So I convinced my coach at BYU and 3 other players to come with me to Hawaii. And before I left, I'd bought a skateboard because I really wanted to get good at surfing while I was there. And so I learned to skate. And then when I got to Hawaii, it was like the first week there, I walk into the ocean with my wallet in my board shorts, and I lost all of my cards and cash. Renewed all the cards, everything came. Looked online for a new wallet. I just typed in men's wallets, and it was just the George Costanzas of the world. It was like, which for those of you who don't watch Seinfeld, it's a bulky brown or black leather wallet. That's pretty much all you saw online, and so it was just like a never-ending scroll. So I came up with I went to the grocery store. It's called Foodland, if anybody knows Hawaii, and walked past the vegetable aisle and saw those thick rubber bands on the broccoli stem. And I swiped that thing from the broccoli, and don't judge me, I didn't buy the broccoli. But I took the rubber band and I wrapped it around my cards and cash and called it good. I love that minimalism as my wallet. And that was the first time where I realized, like, I like this really slim, didn't need anything more than that. I only had a few cards and cash. Then simultaneously, I was taking a class at BYU Hawaii as an entrepreneurship class. And in the class, you have to start a Kickstarter campaign. And I came up with the idea for wallets. I thought it was a very underserved category, and I thought it needs some life. There was just this bulkiness in it and boringness. So I felt like we could use some slim and some style. And so I came up with a better rubber band, moved back to Utah, bought some fabric at Joann's fabric store, found out a way to print onto the elastic where you could print anything you wanted. You could put your face on it if you wanted it. And that was when I was now looking for a sewing machine to sew all these wallets, and I ran into Mckenzie and thought, oh, sweet.
Yogurtland. It was fate.
Yeah, Foodland and Yogurtland are in the story. And I convinced her that I liked her. No, just kidding. This is a fake part of the story. I always liked her. But to use her sewing machine, fell in love with her, got married. She helped me sew the first Thread wallet. Actually helped me design. So she's the one that, for the key ring on the wallet. So that's where it all started. It was a long-winded answer, but that's where we both came up with the first Thread wallet. Which, do you use the first Thread wallet, Ken?
It's over there on the ground.
If you don't know, it's basically
Glorified rubber band.
yeah. There you go.
Glorified rubber band. I love it. So talk to me, because Thread wallets are very colorful, creative, expressive, and that's why I love them personally. So talk to me about the creative process. How do you guys come up with designs? Where did the idea for the first design come from?
The first design ever placed on a Thread wallet was the poop emoji. And we had just started dating, and Colby came up to pick me up for a date. And I remember like so vividly him pulling the piece of elastic out of the glove box. I was like, look at this. And I was like, who is this guy that I just started dating? Yeah, it looks like a piece of crap. But anyway, the creative process has come a long way. Like if you go to our first Kickstarter campaign, it's
If you want a good laugh, go check that campaign.
Yeah, the designs are terrible and just like scraped from Pinterest, and which is totally illegal, and just it was terrible. But as we've developed progressed as ourselves, our designs have progressed, our style has progressed. You've gotten really good at design and Photoshop, and we've added creative designers to our team that manage the designs.
Remind me of your name. Moroni. Yeah, you were saying you were not creative, right? And nor was I. I would say I had zero skill with Photoshop or Illustrator when I first started, but I was forced to learn it. And so you can learn it. And that's where I think I've held on just actually until this last collection. I was probably doing 90% of the designs. And to answer your question, I would say Still Like an Artist. It's a book, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Even with your product ideas or any tech, it really just has to be, I would say, 10% better to actually catch, and so, or different, I would say. So even the wallet, as an example, it wasn't, I would say I stole 90% of that from another company that was doing a wallet that was successful. All we did was change the target demographic we were aiming at. We changed the aesthetic of it. We increased the functionality slightly, but still like an artist, I would say.
Well, and place yourselves, like when you're developing your creativity or trying to work on things, place yourself in situations that produce that creativity. Like for us, even those early days, and we still do it now, like we love just walking around malls. My phone is like an endless scroll of our pictures of our two daughters. And if you go on Colby's phone, it's an endless scroll of pictures of like designs and product that when we're out shopping, he just is like screenshotting like anything that he sees that he thinks is unique or cool. And that's really helped influence the style. And then I love what was said earlier about like keeping an eye on your competitors, but like staying in your own lane. And so we've determined like who our competitors are in terms of like creativity, not necessarily product. Like we look at companies like Stance Socks, Vans, Ruka, Globe. Colby's wearing a Globe shirt. We look at all these cool brands and see what they've done and kind of try to like take elements of the aesthetic that we really like and throw it in to infuse it into our brand.
I love that. Talk to me about your partnership. You've been working together, living together.
Our marriage, yeah.
Essentially for the same amount of time.
Raise of hands, anyone working with either family or a spouse? It's quite a few. Probably you have a similar answer, I'd imagine. If you think you're going to enter a marriage or a business without any arguments, you're probably wrong. And that, I think, what's nice about Mckenzie and I is we are not afraid to be candid, but also that is somewhat of a flaw because we're almost too candid at times. And so early on, we had a hard time swallowing that candor. And what we've learned is to know how to give feedback in the right ways.
And how to receive.
And then also how to receive the feedback in the right ways. So I think if anything has progressed, it's been our ability to communicate, which I'm so grateful that happened early on in our marriage, because I think for those spouses that don't actually work together, that may or may not ever come, or it might come later on in life, and it's harder to adapt. So I think that was really helpful in our business and our marriage.
I think adding people to our team, I think some founders think that the more people they add, the more complicated it gets. And in a lot of ways, that's true. But for us, it really helped us define our roles and responsibilities. When it was just Colby and I doing everything for the first year and a half, 2 years, it was hard to know like what lane we were in because it was just us. And so that produced a lot of conflict because we both had a lot of opinions about everything. But now that we have team members who've helped us take some of the load off, there are elements of the business that neither of us have to like think about anymore, which means that neither of us have to like argue about the decisions that are being made because we've delegated that decision to somebody else to make.
So talk to me about hiring, because we've spoken before about this privately, and you mentioned that more often than not, you don't rely on the qualifications listed on a resume. So talk to me about your hiring process and what you look for instead.
Yeah, you probably have heard the quote, hire slow and fire quick. And if I could write a book, it would be hire quick and fire slow. There you go. No, I'm going to take it back. Hire smart and fire slow. The reason being is it's not necessarily the speed in which you hire. To me, it's more about identifying character and potential. So again, to your point, there are times when a certain position needs skill sets. Like a designer needs to know Illustrator. But would I rather take a B designer with an A character than vice versa? Yeah, absolutely. So I think what I'm looking at when I hire is definitely character. I'm looking at potential and what they can grow into. I'm looking at ability to communicate. I'm looking at humility. So just character and core values to us, which, people who really like freedom and freedom to make decisions. Some people like the corporate structure of their boss telling them what to do, and that's what they do, and then they excel at it. Others don't like that. And so I think what we need at Thread as a young startup is we need people who are wanting the freedom, and then we can give it to them. And so there's core values that I'm looking for, and those are the questions I'm asking. I'm asking more like, tell me stories about your life. I'm asking about your siblings, or what would your parents say about you? If your siblings could say one word about who you are, what is that word, right? And so I'm getting, examples of who this person is, and then I call references. So it's less about a written resume. In fact, I would say half the time I don't even look at a resume, but I'm looking at character and potential.
Colby's mentioned a lot core values, and I think that establishing our core values as our company has really helped that process. So for those of you who don't know as I'm sure all of you don't know, our core values are creativity, humility, integrity, entrepreneurship, and freedom. So when we're hiring, those are the things that we're looking for. And I'd say that our current team are all of those things, and then the people that we have had to lay off are the people that aren't exhibiting those characteristics.
So why did you choose those specific 5 words to be your core values?
It's a great question.
Well, I could go down the list for each of them. The last one, freedom. So they spell out chief. That's not the reason that we chose those words. But they spell out chief. The last one, freedom. Someone recently asked if, they said, answer this question. In order for somebody to know you, what would they have to know? What would they have to know? And my answer was they would have to know that the core value that means the most to me is freedom. Because every decision I make, including starting Thread Wallets, was because of freedom and our lifestyle. I mean, I just told you we went on 3 vacations back to back to back. Like, obviously, we like our freedom, our lifestyle, and so that was an obvious one. The other ones are pretty. The way that we lead and expect others to lead in our company is by humility. I think that's the second biggest one in my mind is. In order to give someone freedom, you have to be humble. It's really hard sometimes to give up freedoms, especially when it's like your baby and you've been it. Like before we had any team, it was 2.5 years just us, and so it's tricky, it's scary, but you have to have humility and let them fail, and you have to let them fall on their face sometimes. But it's also hard to listen to maybe a different viewpoint or. And just be candid. And I'm speaking to candor again, but humility is a massive way that I would hope that if someone was to say Colby is X, I would say Colby is humble. Like that would be the biggest compliment in my book.
Yeah. And the other ones I think speak for themselves. Creativity, we pride ourselves in the creativity of our company and our employees, and we have monthly like art days and projects that we do as a team to help foster that creativity. And then integrity. Obviously, we want people who are going to be honest and straightforward and get to the point. And then entrepreneurship, we want people who are problem solvers and who are going to dive in and they don't need their hand held.
which just following up the very last one because we missed another one was entrepreneurship.
I said that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me speak to that because I just thought I learned about the 49ers. I didn't really know what that meant, but 49ers were the first people on the scene during the gold rush. And part of our story was when I graduated, I had an opportunity to be a financial advisor with my dad, which in essence, he had built this firm for me. For my whole life, we'd talked about, like, I'll take this over. And it'd basically be like, this is the gold mine, here's the shovel. All you have to do is dig, here's the gold mine. For whatever reason, that just didn't sit well with me. I just didn't like the idea of knowing where the gold mine was. I liked the search for the gold, and I think the 49ers would agree that, like, it was probably less about the gold and more just about the adventure coming west and like, that's a fun adventure. Grateful that Mckenzie was so willing to go on the adventure with me. But those are the types of people that we need at Thread. So entrepreneurship to us means somebody who's willing to leave maybe gold or a corporate job or security and take a risk and enjoy the adventure while we're on it.
I love that. You guys started out with a Kickstarter fund, and those kind of fundraising campaigns have their own challenges, but did you ever do any capital raises in addition to that?
No, we have, I guess just outside of crowdfunding, we've never taken any money from external partners. So we've funded Thread based on cash flow from day one.
What have been the wins and the losses of not having outside investors?
I think first and foremost is it's made us so scrappy. Like, we have been profitable from day one, and we've had to really focus on that profitability, which in years like COVID was really, really important. And you never know what life's going to throw at you, what business is going to throw at you. And so knowing that we're profitable and that we're being smart about our growth is, like, I think the biggest thing.
Yeah, we'll probably speak more to the pros than cons. The pros for me would be it forces you to learn new skills. Again, back to designing or whatever it is, we've had to wear all the hats. And so because we couldn't just hire it and pay a high salary for someone who's really good, we had to learn some of those things. That's been really beneficial. The biggest one, though, I think is it forces you to be optimized, like Mckenzie was saying, is you have to think about this company has to be profitable or else it dies. Whereas, and you see in LinkedIn constantly, we raised our first seed round or our second, whatever it is, like, and it's tons and tons of money. And I get the reason for posts. Not all of them are just like, pounding the chest. But I think there is a stigma around raising money that is a sense of accomplishment, which it's cool because there's validation from the eyes of an investor. However, what you don't realize is sometimes you're putting on golden handcuffs. And so being able to be in charge of our destiny and in control of making decisions for ourselves and not having someone look over our shoulder or feel the pressure for growth, that I would trade a million times over the stomach aches I had for 2 years trying to learn how to design and make wallets and all the stresses of that.
So what advice would you give to other entrepreneurs who are scrappy and bootstrapping?
What advice would I give them if they are
if they are bootstrapping, they're being scrappy? What advice do you have for them?
It depends because in different industries tech is harder to bootstrap. It's not impossible. A good friend, Garrett G, they did Scan and they had a working prototype and functioning product well before they raised too much money. With consumer products, it's really easy unless you're developing something really high tech and costly. But what's nice about consumer products is you hand somebody a product and they hand you money right back, and so you can be profitable pretty quickly. So it's a different answer for different entrepreneurs. But if you can, I would say don't take money. I would say learn, get scrappy, partner. Don't be afraid to give equity to the people who are in the weeds with you, who are in it for the long term. That's what we've done. So we have 5 partners internally at Thread that have equity, and that was probably the best decision we ever made.
Yeah. And one of my favorite analogies Colby gives about starting a business is that you don't always have to hit a home run. I think that you see a lot of these big tech entrepreneurs or just entrepreneurs in general and it's like they did it. They've arrived. They made, they raised tons of money, or they had this huge exit. But for every like successful entrepreneur, there's so many that fail, and the idea of not having to hit a home run and something that we've focused on is that like slow, responsible growth. So, okay, we're going to get to first, and then we're going to get to second, and then we're going to get to third, and then we're going to run home. And that is a point on the board. And I think that it can be overwhelming when you're starting a business, when you're just going for that home run every single time, because that's few and far between. But if you just focus on those like slow steps and like moving responsibly, just get on first base, the growth is going to follow.
What other crucial decisions did you make early on that impacted the direction and the current success of Thread?
That's a phenomenal question.
Partnering with my beautiful wife.
Good answer.
Wow. He's a good one.
There's so many crucial ones. If I could go back in time and make more crucial decisions, I would say outsource anything that's not your core competency. Meaning, if you don't care to be the best at it, then give it to somebody who does, if you can afford it. So we held on to production. I was pressing wallets on a dirt basement, and she was sewing wallets for 2 years. If I could go back in time, I would have outsourced that to a factory in a split second.
Same with fulfillment.
And fulfillment, we held on. We were picking, packing, and shipping all of our goods for 2 years as well. So the crucial decision we made in that was to let go of those things. And it was hard. Sometimes it's hard because you want to control certain things, but giving that to a fulfillment company who they care to be the best at fulfilling, we don't really care to, we just want to give that to them, then we would do that. And the same goes for bookkeeping and even maybe video, photo, whatever it is. Like, there's so many things you can outsource. And so I would just be looking at things that you can do that and leverage like RevRoad. They provide great services, and they'll connect you with the right people and work with people who know what they're doing. I would make those decisions again a lot quicker.
So we first got to know each other back in the day through influencer marketing, and we did a collaboration. Talk to me about your influencer marketing campaigns that you've run. In my personal opinion, Thread Wallets is one of the first companies in Utah to really grasp onto influencer marketing and take it and run with it and make it work. So talk to me about where you started with your influencer outreach and how your campaigns and your marketing through influencers has evolved.
Yeah, that's also a great question. So we were so lucky. So part of our story, we met in 2014 in January, and that's when we first started like sewing things and figuring things out, and then sold at some farmers markets. And then it was 2015 when we officially started as a company and registered our LLC and stuff. So legally we started in 2015, but there was a lot going on in 2014 that we don't often talk about. But that's when we were starting on Instagram and starting posting and asking people to follow us. And at that point, Instagram was only 4 years old. So we were really, really lucky to be in that phase because there wasn't a lot of competition and Instagram wasn't as saturated. So we really took advantage of influencer marketing in the early days. When we launched our first Kickstarter in March of 2015, or I guess that would be our second Kickstarter, I remember sitting on the floor of my parents' living room because we were living with them at the time, and we sat there for the entire day messaging and reaching out to everybody on Instagram and Facebook that we knew and asking them to share, to like, to follow, whatever it was. And I think that example really defines like our influencer marketing strategy at the beginning. I really believe wholeheartedly that in some sense, everyone is an influencer. Everyone has this sphere of influence and people that trust them and believe them. And so for those first years, like anyone that reached out for free product, anyone that asked to do a photo shoot, anyone that wanted our product or showed interest, we sent them product. And I think that really started like a viral trend, especially here in Utah. It really took off. There's a lot of college students here. We would go to BYU campus and like hand out wallets. So that was great. Obviously, over the years, it's evolved as we've grown and we've introduced more structure, and we can't respond to every single person that wants free product. But we really try in our influencer marketing to bring value to the person we're working with, and we want it to be a relationship more than just a one-off. We really try to build, we kind of have tiers where we have like influencers where we just reach out to them, hey, we'd love to send you product, like no strings attached. If you enjoy it, like, we'll just be in touch. So just very no strings attached. And then if they do share about it and like it a lot of times we ask them to become like a core influencer where we put them on contract. So every month they're required to do like one post. But it all starts out with that first reach out, no strings attached, just a relationship, following each other, liking, engaging with each other. If we're in the area with them, taking them out to dinner or whatever it is. And then we have our core influencers, and then we have our thread heads who are our like athletes, sponsored artists, etc. And they're people who've kind of funneled up through that system and now post for us regularly, and we have really good, strong relationships with them.
When we started, like Mackenzie's saying, it was just brand new. So you got influencers who didn't really know what to charge. So you'd have one influencer say that's $10,000 a post, and then the other ones would say like $200 a post. It was just like across the board.
All over the place.
You didn't know. So and we didn't have the money to be paying, but we did have the product. And you're giving us too much credit, Bree, by saying we were the trailblazers in this, because
way too much
we
credit.
took a page out of Freshly Picked's playbook, and they did the palms up approach, which is like offer something as opposed to like asking to take. And so what we did, and Mackenzie was just killed it with this, was she would send, like if she would reach out and say, hey, we want to offer you free product, love what you're doing, send us your shipping address, and she'd send them product. And instead of giving them just one wallet, she would, make it a great experience, and she'd send them a bunch of them, and it was just a fun experience where they felt like, I want to post about this now. They just got something, and we still do that. So we send out boxes with like a full experience and all the product, and it's a handwritten note and all that stuff. So it's you got to get creative when you're young without money. But regardless of if you're in tech or if you're a consumer product, but your product is like a mattress and you're not going to ship out a mattress, you might get, say that mattress company, you might get some fun products that are relating to your brand. Say like pillowcases, or like Purple mattress, you might just get like all the purple candy, or whatever it is that I'm just thinking off the top of my head. But like get creative with like what you can ship people, and you know what I'm saying? So
how you can engage with them and give them, bring value to their lives.
So throughout your entire Threads journey up to this point, what has been one of the greatest lessons you've learned?
Oh gosh. I would say the greatest lesson and the beauty of starting your own business is it opens the doors for miracles in your life. So we get to see, because we don't know what we're doing, so we are constantly praying and asking for help and talking with people. You see so many miracles, and God's so willing to give them. And so you get to meet so many people that way, and it's just, it's so fun. You get to learn a lot. You're constantly seeing the stars align. I mean, it's countless number of times we've seen God's hand in this. So he's our third business partner, we always say.
Yeah.
But I would say, if anything, that's like the highest point. There's so many little lessons, but I would say that's like number one.
We're so in sync. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
I literally was going to say we're very religious, and the initial thought that came to my mind is that God is in the details. There's been countless experiences where it's just like that would not. I mean, 2020 is a prime example. We went into the year with a goal of 13 million. It would be our first 8-figure year. And when COVID hit, we were like, crap, like what's going to happen? And we revised all our goals, made some changes, and we ended up coming out just like $500,000 shy of that 13 million goal despite everything. And there's just, whether it's a large example like that or small examples of meeting a person that gives us a piece of advice about something, there's just, business is too risky to not include God, in my opinion.
You mentioned that we are coming out of 2020,
Yeah.
which we are all very aware of.
Yes.
So what word of advice would you give to entrepreneurs who have also felt the stress and the struggle of the past year and who are trying to look forward with positive outlooks?
I would say our goal word for 2021 is optimization. So I think along with that is efficiencies. So as you're building your business into the future, find ways to keep things lean and focus on profitability, focus on sustainable and smart growth. And it's just kind of that home run analogy again, just like keep things simple. Just get on first base.
I will take more of an emotional piece of advice here is take care of yourself. And I remember early on I was taking an entrepreneurship class at BYU, and the teacher said it's impossible to find balance in when you're starting a business, which you can, when starting a business, I realize it's not impossible, but it's just a lot more difficult, but you can find balance. I think there's like you kind of feel like you've earned it when you say, oh, I woke up at 5 and I stayed up till 1, which we did, and it was, would never want to go back to that. It's not something I'm proud of, you know. And what I am proud of is the fact that I can go spend 3 weeks in Mexico and Hawaii with my family, and have some work-life balance. That's what I'm proud of. And so, if anything, when starting a company, or if you're well on your way with an amazing company, I'd say just be kind to your mind, be kind to yourself, and take time away from work and spend it with family.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Oh, no, go.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to open it up for audience questions at this point because we have a great audience with us here today and hands already in the air. So as a reminder, if you have a question, just raise your hand. We'll walk a microphone to you. Do not touch it. We'll hold it in front of you. Thank you very much.
Colby and Mckenzie, great job. Loved it. This question comes from online. A good friend of RevRoad by the name of Cornell. He asked, other than influencer marketing, how did you go about finding your wide range of sales channels, and what marketing channels have been the most effective?
I'll speak to sales channels, and you say marketing channels. Sales channels, we were strictly e-commerce for 3 years. Well, I guess I take that back. As far as our attention was just e-commerce. I liked the idea of staying simple and direct. That's how we were able to stay profitable. So sales channels we've introduced along the way. We're now with wholesale, as mentioned, we're in actually like 800 plus accounts. We have our own retail, so we have currently 2 kiosk locations and planning to scale that. And then we also do business to business stuff. So as mentioned in the intro, like working with Nike. Well, actually I've never worked with Nike. I don't know why they came to mind.
It's a goal.
Yeah.
It's
like
dream. Throw it out there.
Google,
Put it into fruition.
Big Fortune 500 companies all the way down to like high schools. Which is really fun. And that is, I would say, a custom order was actually the reason that we were able to fund the brand. We were able, with an order like that, we were able to get into our first office, which was awesome, from Vivint and a company called Chubby's. So sales channels, I would just take slow. You know, when you're first building a company, I would say you're building a bike as your vehicle, and then slowly you'll upgrade to like a motorcycle, and then a car, and then a semi, and then who knows what's next. So just be very simple with your sales channels.
Yeah. And then the second part of that question was marketing? Like what?
What marketing channels have been most
Marketing, paid advertising, Facebook, Google. We do ads on Snapchat. Any type of paid advertising has been our most effective.
Yeah, I think, I don't know the audience here who's in like consumer products, but when I asked Skull Candy how much they were spending on paid ads, they spent $50,000 in Q1, which is like nothing.
This was like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago. So they're probably different now. But which, to give you an idea, we're spending probably like $500,000 a month. So as a company who's direct native, we're spending 10 times the amount a month, or actually way more than that. For a company who's been around, I would say take advantage of that. If you're in consumer or even tech, I imagine paid advertising is massive. That's the reason we've been able to scale and stay profitable.
Yeah. It's getting harder and more competitive, so you have to have a lot of like ad sets to test and optimize, and have like the knowledge and bandwidth behind you to do that. I know a lot of companies starting out that paid advertising is really, really intimidating because they don't have a content team, they don't have copywriters, they don't have photographers, and so invest in like quality content and just start building it out. Even now we have ad sets that win, and we have ad sets that just don't perform well. So you just gotta test.
Other ones in a nutshell, email marketing is a no-brainer, and SMS marketing.
Yeah, we introduced SMS last year in like March of 2020, and like over 2 million was attributed to SMS. So SMS is a really powerful marketing channel right now.
Hi, I'm curious about your actual growth curve. So you started in 2015, it's 2021 now. You guys did 13 million last year. What was that growth curve like from a revenue standpoint? You guys worked just the two of you for 2 years. So, you know, what's the growth curve for you guys been, if you don't mind sharing?
It went from 150,000 the first year. I'm using round numbers here. 150 to 250. Then we figured out ads, and then it went to 1.1, 4.5, 8, and then 12.5. So it took us a while, I think, speaking back to this like outsourcing and ads, when we figured those things out and we knew what our core competency was and how to nail our customer and what products they wanted, that's when we really started to see that like hockey stick. It took a few years. Yep.
Yeah, it was 2017.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, 2017 was the year that we did over $1 million, and that was the same year that we outsourced production, outsourced fulfillment, and really started honing in on ads.
So in the very beginning stages of your business, I'm right here, by the way, throughout those first couple of years, were there ever some really good opportunities that seemed like really good opportunities, but you had to say no to, and why did you say no to them?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is talk about an argument Mckenzie and I had constantly about whether or not we could dump more resources into our B2B, because the product itself can work in so many different industries. Like Marriott could use them, or cruise lines, or high schools, or whatever it is. Like the wallet and a lanyard can just work across the board. And so I was in favor of, let's just like open the doors to all of these different companies, and we can scale this thing really fast. And she was in favor of, let's build our brand. That's what we enjoy the most. That's what we find so much fulfillment out of. And obviously she won the argument. And we have kind of a hybrid now, so we do both, but most of our attention, actually all of our attention goes to brand. The other B2B stuff is more reactive. There's hardly any outreach. We just hired someone this year, but other than that, that was a hard one to say no to, because you're saying no to a lot of money and what you kind of need when you're first starting, and looking at brand. And it's a long-term play, but it's more fun, I'd say. And
yeah, so we like the branding, the creative, the fun side.
Yeah.
Mckenzie mentioned this. As far as sourcing goes, when entrepreneurs ready to scale, what factors do you two or do you guys consider on finding who or where will you manufacture your products?
Yeah. So early on, we didn't know how to do that. Luckily, Alibaba was a very easy software that we could we could find factories. So the factories, actually I'm about to lie, because the factories we found in year 2 were the same factories we were using up until the war on tariffs, so we switched to Vietnam. So we were in China and now we're in Vietnam. But to answer your question, we sourced those factories just from Skype. So we never flew out to China. Most factories in China have somebody who speaks English really well, or it's kind of a middleman to factories. And everything can be done digitally, as we know now. So sending videos, sending pictures, sending swatches. So we just figured out how to do that and source it ourselves. Now we use a third-party sourcing company. So if we want to, we're doing new products, they'll find the factories for us.
And when you're sourcing, I'll give you a few pieces of advice. I remember it was the summer of 2015, so it was right after we finished wrapping up our Kickstarter, and Colby had actually spent time on Alibaba and ordered some products and they were nearly perfect. Like, I look back at it and I'm like, why didn't I was such a control freak, and I was like, the elastic's just a little too thick and it's a little too shiny, and so we threw in the towel because we were like, it wasn't right. Whereas if we would have just pushed a little bit harder and like done a few more revisions, I think we would have gotten it.
Well, we would have, because fast forward 2 years, is the same factory.
It's the same factory.
That was Susie.
So interesting.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I would say is, if you decide to use a third-party supply chain company, make sure that you have really good like agreements in place and stuff, because we used a company out of Utah, which is actually kind of unfortunate, to help us for a little bit, because we were like, oh, I don't know what to do. And the cost of our product was a lot greater than it should have been, because we were paying so many middlemen.
It was 3 times the amount. Yeah.
3 times the amount. And then about 6 months after we parted ways with them, because we were like, we're just going to do this on our own, they knocked off our product. And we were fortunate enough to have IP on our product, so we were able to like tell them to stop. But it was kind of unfortunate because they knew about the IP and everything, but we just didn't have agreements in place. So if you are doing that, make sure that you are protecting your product and your ideas.
As a final question, we have one more.
Oh, Chris, we knew this would happen.
Well, it's going to be a good one. No, it's a 2-part question. It's mostly for Colby, because I know you're a soccer player and soccer fan. Champions League's happening right now. I don't know if you're pulling for Man City or Chelsea, but when Man City wins, can we expect a line of Man City designed thread products? Thank you.
You know what's funny is, as big of a soccer player as Colby was, he does not watch soccer at all.
I skateboard now. Sorry, Chris.
Chris's Emmy right there is our head of customer service engagement, so that's her dad. We love them.
As a final question, this is a question we always ask. What is something fun your success has allowed you to do?
That is a great question, because I've been praying for how to give back. I feel like we've been blessed a lot, so just like, how do we give back? And last year was kind of rough, as we know. I struggle with some anxiety. I posted on LinkedIn if you haven't seen it, but my mom struggles with alcoholism and has for 30 plus years. And it got so bad last year that it kind of sent me into some panic attacks, and coming to realize that I want to give back in mental health and addiction recovery through recreation. So what it has enabled me to do is first discover where I can give back, but also having the vehicle for Thread to give back. So as you know, maybe some of you know, our slogan is carry on. So we help you carry your stuff, but we also help you carry on emotionally. So we get to tell stories of people who've come out of things like that, or how they carry on, how do they find mental fitness and stability in their lives. So, and then eventually we would love to have some sort of foundation and give back in that way. And so it definitely has helped a lot in that regard.
Yeah. If you want to see a really cool story on our Instagram, one of our thread heads last November was at a friend's house, and I think it was a pit bull bit off her upper lip and like all of her nose. And she shared a video with our audience about that whole process and how skateboarding has helped her like cope and heal with this huge life change. So yeah, giving us a platform to connect with really cool people and share their stories has been awesome. And then experiences like this, like I think that my favorite thing and what I'm most grateful for at Thread is just the people we've been able to connect with because of it. We have an amazing team, and we would not be where we are without them. It's all thanks to them. And then just people that we get to go to lunch with, and people that reach out. And the other day, the head of digital marketing from the Walt Disney Company called me to ask me some questions about something that she's building, and I was just like, this would never happen if I didn't have Thread. And so that is what I'm most grateful for.
I think that's really cool. Well, we have a gift for you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Let's give one more round of applause for Colby and Mckenzie.
Thank you, guys.
Or McColby.
McColby. Yeah, McColby.